us with that. This system administration is more or less about the overall access to the roles which we have, which is the general ledger, the investment accounting, the system administration itself, and the voyage admin. So without going too much in detail here, all we have is we'll have all the users here. And each user, if I come to Dale here, it will just basically give them, it just basically give you the access which we have here. So it will tell you what access you have, roles you have, and what you don't have. So again, you can see that you don't have access to investment accounting and all that. So a system administrator, you just need to add that role to yourself. So in this case, what it does is I'll just say, okay, I want to give you access to that because you are the system administrator to that, and then I'll save it. Okay. So in essence, now you've got access to that. So for each user, for the administrators, for each user, you then define what you want them to see for all that. And then, of course, there are other things which I just want to discuss in terms of custom menus. So currently in 7S, you can define custom menus, but in V8, we have got what we call global roles. So we have got these global roles, but for you to be very specific, you can then say, okay, if I have access to this role, if I don't want you to see certain elements, then this is the setup which we go through. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but what I'm saying is, unlike 7S where you've got custom roles, here we've got global roles, and then you can just create what are called company-specific roles. So for example, here we have got this super user. So if I go to this super user, I click on them, I'll be able to see what functionalities they are able to see. And this is where, if we come to the roles here, we have got access. Okay, if I come to the company here, we have got what are called roles, and these roles will define what things you can see. So if I edit that, it will tell me that for example, for the Voyager, for the databases, this is what you are able to see. For the functions, this is what you are going to be able to do. And for the elements, this is what you are able to do. And the menus, this is what you are able to be able to do. So what it means is when we talk of elements, we are effectively going to discuss that just now. So if I come here, I move back to, let's say, this, which I started first of all. So automatically, it allows me to go to this. So the elements themselves are, first of all, the functions is, for example, if I don't want a user to see setup, I can block this. If I want them to see setup, but I don't want them to see all that, I can block that. So in essence, the system administrator is just a high-level way of saying what users can see and what they cannot see. So that's the most important part. Then, when we come... Okay.
Can I ask a quick question on that? What's
yes.
What things get determined by a user group by saying, okay, I want everyone in this user group to be able to see XYZ and do XYZ, and what gets determined at a personal level, like an individual account holder level?
Okay, so that's a good point. So if you come here, I'll go back to the individual level here. So you'll find that each user here, any user, you pick up any user, you can pick up, let's say, I'll pick Andrea so that it's different from you. What it does is it effectively gives you here, you can decide what database you want them to access. That's the first point. So what happens is in Yardi 1, when you log into Yardi 1, you've got the screen, and then you choose which app they can access. So that's the first thing. So
Yep,
you can,
okay.
they say you want them to go into Elevate production, but it doesn't tell you which database they can access. So what happens then is you can set that up, but also you can set it up here and say, okay, for Andrea, I want them to only access that. So I'm just going to give an example here. I can then say, okay, I just want them only to have that, so I can then remove that row from them. Then once I have got that, then I will say, okay, within test, for example, what rows can they do? Okay, so there are 2 rows which can have. We have got a global row. That means you are giving them the carte blanche, so they can see everything. So this is where you have the row which is called global. So this is like the generic row, so they are able to see anything. So if you look at it from 7S, this is where you have got the standard menu of 7S. So what it means is you cannot change what they can see. It's just the generic one. Then you can decide and say, okay, I want them to see specific things. So this is where you create a row, and that row is created from the top, not on the individual level. I'll come back to Andrea, because we are saying at the moment they can only be a preparer, and they are only going to be seen, for example, at the moment, they are only allowed to see focusing manager. So that's the product they have. So if we come here, they don't have access to any of the other rows. So depending on your user groups which you have, so at the moment there are 2 user groups here. There is the super user, and I think you have also created another one, another row which they have access to, which is called AQEQ. So depending on what you want your company rows to be, you might need to add them, and then you can assign a user to each row. So that row is common to everyone. Once you do that, this row will also, that row is also it's also defining for each one of them and say, okay, I've given them access to Focus Manager, but within that I can still, even though they are in that special group, I can still take out the access from them, what I don't want them to see. So at the moment you can see that they only have got that, so you can do that. So within that, we are effectively saying, I don't want to see, okay, I'll just duplicate this so that I can give a typical example of that. I can say, this is what we are talking about, okay? In that, the administration side of things, I'm talking about that. And then what I can say is, within that, I can then reduce the elements, okay? So the elements
and this is at an individual level. This is for a specific person.
Yeah. But you can set up a group. If Andrea is in a group called, let's say, IEQ Fund Controllers or IEQ Fund Accountant, they'll have all the common things in there depending on how you have defined that particular row. But within that particular row, you can still go and restrict again within that. So in a nutshell, that's what is. So in summary,
you use the group, but then you can go in and customize it by an individual afterwards.
Yes, but the good thing is, if you have got a group of accountants, of course they'll have common things, but you can tweak that depending on what you have. So the most important thing is in access, first of all, what database do they have? In row, which row they have? Is it a company row or it's the global one? And once we have that, then you can say which pages can they see within that product, which is the row. And within that product, if they go to the menu set, which elements of the menu can they see and which they cannot see. So that's the overall description of the system. So from an admin point of view, that's what you should be looking at. Once that is set up, then of course, at the moment, already in Voyager, you have got all the securities. The most important thing I should say is, look at 7S as the engine, okay? And V8 is the shiny body, or the shiny body of the Mercedes-Benz, or whatever it is. So you're seeing outside, but underline anything which you have already set up in Voyager 7S is already appearing here, subject to a few things which are in 7S, and currently they are not in V8. That is from an administration point of view only. But things like ETLs, if you are going to be loading certain ETLs, but we'll discuss that as we go through this particular session. So once we have got that, we now move into the system administration. The system administration here, you find that, okay, one other thing as well before I leave this, because this is quite important from your point, Ellie, is you have got this report, and you can then run for any users. At the moment, we can run users and say, okay, I want to see what elements they have, what access reports they have. So you can run this. If I come here and run this, for example, it can tell me what role we have and what is more or less the product. So this row has been created. So you can export this into Excel and then analyze that. So you've got these rows. I think you'd be familiar with that. I won't go into detail. So here on the reports, you can also go to the user element reports and say, okay, for that at the moment we don't have that, but you can, once you set this up, you have all these users, and you can see what role they have. So this report is quite useful, and you can see everything there. It can tell you what roles they have, and then you can tweak it according to your group, which you have. So if you have got that particular group, you can analyze that and see what it is they have at the moment. So it will tell you everything there. Okay, so this is quite a useful report. So you can explore these various reports. Who is logged in and that and all that stuff, you can have it here. So at the moment, you can see that you guys have logged in. It will show you everything there. So again, it's a report. Okay, I won't do too much on that. Yeah, sure.
Can I please just add, I think maybe don't complicate things too much, Ailey, by making too many tweaks on individual user level, but really keeping it at the role level, because I think otherwise from a maintenance perspective, you're making it quite difficult for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that in terms of our policy, we would try not to have individual changes, to be honest, but I was just trying to understand how it worked in terms of, you know, when you create a new account. So for example, today in 7, we would create a new account, we would assign, we would provision a user to a certain group, but then we actually still need to go into 7S and sort of tick the box for, you know, access to investment accounting and 12 months forward, 12 months back. Like there's a few user-specific nuances we still need to go in and do.
Yeah, so that depends on whether you're using templates or not. If you're using a template, then technically you wouldn't have to go in and do that. You can do everything from URD1 directly, which should be similar for this as well. Once you've created those initial roles, you can do all your provisioning from URD1.
Yeah, okay, that's good to know.
Okay, that's correct. I didn't try to go through URD1 because my assumption is you guys are already comfortable with that, but like what she's saying, that's correct. Once you set up a user, you can have a template or what we call a user group, and once you assign them to user group, they take the characteristics of that, and then this is ported over directly into Voyager 8. So you don't have to worry about going into Kanban system admin. But like you said, the idea is just to make sure that you see that the option is there. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we have touched quite a lot on that. So one other thing which I just want to touch on now is when we look at this, we have an overview. So what I touch on is the idea that you have got various functionalities. I'll just come back to this. And then the most important part is...
Hi, can I just check something? See on the role selection, if a user is, say, on the preparer group, would they be able to see the system admin and Voyager admin roles? Would they have that?
No.
Oh, no. So they would just have like GL manager and investment accountant on their profile.
Correct. So depending on these are the global roles which we have here. So if, for example, you have got a company role which you call IQ, EQ, fund accountant, that's the role which you just see there. And then it will have all the menu sets and everything already for you there. If you are using the global role, then you just see, like in this case, you just see investment accounting or GL accounting. So from an accounting point of view, these two are the ones which you see, and the database which you access.
And you wouldn't see this system admin or Voyager. That would be there.
Correct. Yes, that's a good point. Yeah. So the idea here is to say these are the roles which are available globally, but it will be tailor-made to a user group, what they can see. So the assumption is Ailey and the system administrators also, that already if it's there, then you find that. Let me just see, for example, at the moment, if we come here, so the good thing is you'll be able to only see, let's say, GL manager and investment accounting. I'll come back to that. I've deliberately not yet gone into that because I just wanted to do it to some extent systematically. But what I'm saying is if you come here slightly, I come to the users. All these users, let's say, are wrote, and I come to the row. At the moment, it seems a lot of people are in focusing cafe. So it means that a few things needs to be done to give people access to the correct that, or possibly I'm looking at the wrong one, but at the moment that needs to be done because it's a new interface anyway. Okay. So once we have got that, the most important thing, like I say, is if we come back, if we come back here, the most important thing is we have got the standard accounting setup. Here I'm just looking at sort of like the main things, but what I want to reiterate is already these things are already in 7S. But the most important thing is when we are looking at the accounting setup, the system configuration, the chart of account, everything now starts from Voyager admin and the two sections which we are going to be looking at, the GL manager and investment accounting. But what I just want to highlight is the fact that usually when you do the setup, we have got these key accounts, the cash accounts, everything. So we'll quickly go through this because this now forms part and parcel of what you are effectively going to be looking at. And then in essence, when we have got that, what does it mean from you? So the most important part is when we come back to our analysis here, okay, depending on the access you have, then you have got access to, this is the main dashboard you have now, okay. So this is the investment accounting dashboard. So in effect, what we have in 7S, here, this is what usually you used to call the investment dashboard here. So unlike this dashboard, you can see that this dashboard is cleaner, and what it does is it gives you quite a few things. So the first thing you do is when you go into this, you have got this dashboard. It would give you like already the levels, the various levels which you have. So these are the current levels which you have by property, such that it will give you, because most investment accounting is more or less consolidation. So it will tell you what roll-ups have you done and what it is, and if there is any open tasks. Again, we'll touch on that. The most important thing which I want you to get from here is the dashboard gives you quite a few things. You can use the dashboard to do a filter. So for some of you who have got certain properties, you can set up a filter here. You can choose what you want to see, which entities you want to see. You can choose which levels you want to see, and then you can search that. So automatically it will just show you the top level. So once you do that, you can even go and then save that filter. You give it a name, so you don't have to see everything, okay? So the most important thing is when you are in here is the dashboard you see. And once you are in the dashboard, it will give you a few things at the bottom. So if I clear that, I'll have I'll have what I want to look at. Okay, so a few things there. Okay, I'll have all things here of what the position is. So what it does, it gives you a list of the entities. You can do a search by the entity there, if you know what it is, or you can do it by the level if you know what level it is. Or if you just want to see the properties, then it will automatically show the 7 properties down there. So what it does as well is it gives you an idea of if a roll-up has been done, which is a consolidation, if you are doing any NAV allocation, a waterfall, and if there is any upcoming task which you have set on that property. But the most important thing is it also gives you a few things here. It gives you the current period for which that asset or IM entity is running. So here we've got various periods which are open there. And then we'll come back to the transaction side of things, how you run the roll-ups and all that. But for now, the idea is to give you an insight into what this looks like. Then,
Can I ask a question on this? Because I can see that you've got every user has visibility to all entities that are within Yardi, but we kind of work in client teams, and we don't necessarily need access or visibility to all this data. So how do we? Is it the filter function that you would have to set up to, set up your own client groups? Because some of this data wouldn't really be relevant for certain jurisdictions or, certain teams.
That's a good point. So, like I said, V8 is just the body. So already those filters are coming already from 7S. So what we are saying is in Voyager here, all your security settings which you have, depending on the group, will be here. So if I review a group, it will automatically specify the group. And if I look also at the users, then if I review any user, let's say that, it will specify which property list they have also. So already it's the same what you have in 7S, but depending on the user, they will have the properties which they can access. So when they run that, they only see what they need to see. Okay.
They only
see that. Actually,
yeah.
To clarify, actually, so as a system administrator, if I wanted to, I could restrict a user to only see a certain property list, but that would then need maintained. So if an additional property was added and it wasn't added to the property list, it would be invisible to the users and create some confusion. If we ever have a situation where we need to truly enforce, like a fully ring-fenced entity that nobody else can see, we can do it that way though. But then the other thing I'm presuming is you were showing us the filter. So if it's really just a case of my preference is I don't want my dashboard to show me a client that I don't care about, I only want to see my own, you would arrange your filters to only select the property lists that you want to see.
Yes, so yeah, that's a good point. But also, let's say within the group which you are restricted. So I'm restricted, let's say, to the properties. Then I can set a filter and say filter 1. I only want to see 2 properties because possibly they link to one from a consolidation point of view, or depending on how far you have processed. So you can do that. So within your group, you can play around whatever permutations you want to see. Yeah.
Could you show us the filter settings again and just go into the entity, the one that said entity, and show us what's there?
Okay, so
on the dashboard.
Okay, so if I go to the dashboard here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
So here, when we look at an individual, then they'll just see all the properties which is related to them. At the moment, I can see everything. So that's the thing. I think
but
with
presumably
inside,
you could like hit control and select 3 entities here and say I just want to see these 3 entities.
Yeah, you can do it on your search there. You can just pick up what entities you want. Let's say
I just don't see a tick box to like select them, so it's a bit like the.
So usually it's just the link there. Yeah, that's I think different from the tick box here. Usually it's just ticking like that.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Sorry, that's why I was struggling to understand how you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So you can just choose that. Yeah, and then
if you save that,
you
that
can,
will be
if
on
you
your
want.
dashboard.
Yeah. Once you run that, you can see that it picks up all that. And then if you want this, you can then save this and give it a name which you want to give.
So you could call that Ashley's clients or something like that, and it would just make your life easier going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Where do you find, if you save more than one filter, where do you find the options?
You can always come here and it will have the name at the moment.
Okay. Got it.
So you can just come here and say I want this particular filter. You choose it and then that's it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. Okay. So once you do that, then at the moment I can clear that filter as well, depending on what I want. And then if I search everything, then comes back. Yeah. So the filter is quite very useful from the dashboard point of view. And the filter is also helpful when we come to reporting as well. Again, we'll come back to this, but you can play around with the filter, but we'll come back to that. I don't want to rush forward quickly. Yeah. So once we have got that, there are 2 things which I just want to highlight here. Most of the accounting work or the fund accounting work will be done in this particular dashboard. And also we have got the GL manager. So GL manager, as you can see, again, you've got the dashboard and you can play around the filter the same. You can just say, okay, you don't want to see the properties, you just want to see the property list. So the property list which you currently have, these are the property lists at the moment. That's what I can see. We have got that and that. So you can run that and run the report which you want. So at the moment, if I select everything there, and that, it will give me all the properties. So the difference between investment accounting and GL manager. GL manager, look at it as like what you call in 7S international. So, but this is international it's just the general ledger. And in that case, the first thing you see is on the dashboard. It shows you, like for example, do you have any open, any unposted batches? So this is what it gives you. If you've got open AR, open AP, and if you've got any end of month system operating, the system operating month at the moment is 01/2026. But You can then go to the individual properties. You can see the individual properties, what month is open. I guess there is a reason this is still 2024, possibly that asset is closed or whatever has happened, because our system operating month is that. So there's quite a big gap. So this is very current. So I haven't gone into it.
On this list here, you've got, so say for the UR825, so they're investors, but they're not actually property. So we wouldn't be doing any AR, AP, GL work for those at the investor level, because on V7 we would do everything in investment manager for investors in terms of like contributions or income allocation. But I'm just wondering why they're appearing here on the GL side.
The GL side is just because you've set them up as properties, because if you set up your investor, you've got your usual legal entity and then you attach it to what level it is. So it's just a generic list of everything. Okay.
Oh, okay. So they're not actually properties.
Yes. But because remember, when you set them up at the highest level, but you do nothing to them. So that's why it's like that. So in essence, this is the issue here. So it's just a list of everything. That's why it's important when you set up your filter, you just see what you need to see. So this comes to the point which has been raised. So that's a good point.
Yeah, because we wouldn't close like the AR or AP on these investors, because we wouldn't use them for that.
Yeah.
So is there a way to kind of like take them out, or do they still have to come through?
Actually, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not going to cause you any problems.
No. You just have to filter them out.
Yeah, and the second point is you've got a property list, isn't it? So you won't be able to see this. I'm seeing it because I'm Yadi. Sorry if I have to say. Sorry for saying that. But in essence, you are in a certain asset a group. From a security point of view, you've got your group. So you won't be seeing this. You only see what you are supposed to see. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm just looking at it from a point of no knowledge, if you know what I mean. I'm just looking at this list, and that's it. But like what Ailey just said, if I'm not mistaken, it's just this won't affect you in any way. You see what you need to see only. Yeah. Okay. And the other thing is, once you have got that, you have got the where you do all your accounting. We'll revisit this. So you have got all where you do your accounting, and then you have got your all your reports. We'll revisit this. Then for setup, again, depending on the role which you have, this allows you to set up a legal entity, and once you set up a legal entity, you can set up a property, and then once you have got a property, then you can set up a property list. Later, we'll look at things like import. So what does it mean when you are importing stuff? Okay. So in a nutshell, this is sort of like the high level. I just wanted us to look at the dashboard before we go into the other particular details. Now, what we have is, I think this is for administrators. I'll quickly go through this. We have got things like accounting setup of GL books. This is already what you have. So for the administrators, you already have this in the Voyager admin. So when you go there, you go and look for the environment, everything is there, and then we will do that. But here, I'm just doing it from a high level point of view, so that you see that in Voyager 8, all these things are there. And then, of course, we have got all the GL segments, they're already there. And if you want to see that everything is set up, is already there. Then, of course, what I just want to recap is, when you look at the IM setup structure, this is a particular example which I have. The same things which you have in 7S is the same things which you can see in Voyager 8, whereby you have got things here below the property, and then these are the levels, and these are the various levels which you have. We'll revisit this and see the small difference in terms of how you view that. But everything is still the same. You still have got your your core objects, you still have got your IAM module entities, and you still have got your what I call your levels. Then the most important thing is, I'm not going through this in detail because already you guys have got in 7S, but what I just wanted to say is, in terms of the Voyager entity definitions, it's still the same, and in terms of the text entities, it's still the same in terms of how we set them up. So the idea here is just to give a highlight of what you have, and it's the same with the levels. It's still the same levels which you have in your old Voyager, but in V8, I'll go through this shortly to say how is it structured. It's all in investment accounting. Under administration, you have it under configuration in levels, and capital, you have got that. We'll go into this shortly. Then the most important, the other thing as well is, we have got the tax entities. I briefly show this. So again, it's all in GL dashboard, and it's under properties, and then you've got the legal entities. The same with the properties. It's all in GL manager. You go in properties, and you go in properties. You then need to list all the properties you have. Then of course, when it comes to property list, it's the same as well. Then when it comes to IAM entities, it changes. It's still the same relationship which you have, whereby you have got the investor and the investment, but the difference is the IAM entities are all investment accounting role, and then you go to entity add, you can add an entity and all that. And once it's ended, then it will appear on the dashboard. And this is where you add up a commitment, and also if ever you want to add a property, you can do that, as long as the legal entity has been set up in your GL ledger, GL manager, sorry. The most important thing which I want to say is, for most of you, you don't have this you won't have this ability to add an entity, because the permissions which are already in 7S are ported over to V8. So if you click on that, you shouldn't be able to add, because it will show you that you don't have that ability. So what happens in most cases is, when you set up the citizen level elements, then if it's a group of fund accountants or whoever it is, or whatever IQ, EQ role you give them, you can restrict these elements. They are not able to see these elements as well. Now, what's important here is, when you look at the entities, the addition, when you add the addition form for entities, is still the same as in 7S, but the only difference is the screen. So when you click on add entity, you have all the same sort of like options. With anything with a star, it's basically saying that's a very important field to complete. And then of course you have generally the usual stuff. So when you load, if you are going to load it in an ETL template, this is the ETL template. But because you're already using the system, you don't need an ETL to load an entity unless you are loading lots of entities. So most of it will be done on the front end. Then of course, once you have got that, then you have the usual information which you put in. It's just the same information as well. The other thing is, once you have set up the entity, you can then of course go in and set up the commitments. And then the commitments, again, this is from people who have got access to that. And wherever you have got a commitment, you add up a commitment or you change a commitment, you can do the recalculation. Then in essence, then you have all these things which are standard as well. And what I want you to get from this is the fact that when we look at all this, we come back to the overall view of our two main operating modules, because this is where most of the things are going to be done. So you have things like accounting, charges, receipts, payables, and that. You can go to the GL. You see that these are the same options you have in 7S. And then, of course, management fees. And then the reports will come back to the reports here. You'll be able to come to the same reports. You have got that. If you want registers, you can come here. And then the registers will definitely show you what type of register you have. So you have got all this stuff. Then, of course, if you want...
I'm sorry, can I just check when you mentioned ETL? Can we use the same templates that we've got in 7S, or do we need to have new templates?
It's the same template. So if you remember, I alluded to the fact that at the moment you cannot load the ETLs in V8, so it will still be done in 7S.
Oh, so it's not work. It's not set up yet.
Yeah. But there is a but, as always. V8 allows you to load all your journals. You don't need to go and load them as ETLs. So we'll go through that. How is it done? So this is in V8. We have got this import function here. So where you can import journals and you can import budgets. Okay. So after our break, we'll quickly go through that before we touch on the other stuff there. Then so we'll come back to that. ETLs, standard ETLs versus that. So the assumption is most of the ETLs which are non-financial, they are still in 7S, although shortly they'll be moving to V8. So if you come here at the moment, here in that, if you have got access, if you're given access to that, if you come under ETLs, we have got the ability to do that. This import function is not at the moment. At the moment, this will just need to be updated later. But the key thing is most of your stuff will be in here for most of what you'll be doing. You don't have to worry about that as long as you have got access or this element called import. Okay. And then what I also wanted to touch on is if we come back to this dashboard, okay, you have accounting, the same accounting. So just like what you have in 7S, you can have the ability to do your journals, you've got the ability to do that, and you've got the ability to close your periods. These other things like IM transaction will look at that. So you have got transaction set types. So you've got capital calls, you can do that. Performance a little bit, but most of the things is you have got the same reports, but with additional stuff there like IM analytics and then the commitments. And then from an administration point of view, I won't touch too much on that, but what I just want to reiterate is the fact that you have got the same things you have in 7S. The only thing is, the main thing is you've got your configuration, but the main thing is here, you've got your options, which you've already set up. So this is the same as if I come here, you have got investment accounting and accounts and options. So for the administrators, they'll know what I'm talking about. So here, quickly, everything is there. You've got that, you've got the cash transactions, the default. So these are all coming over from 7S. Then the levels, like I was saying, is the same as well. We've got the levels. We'll talk later about the transaction types. So this is where you do your cascade resets. We'll talk later about roll-ups and that. And then, of course, we have got, at the moment, your income allocations and the fee allocations, if you've got any. At the moment, you don't have. And then you have got various things there. And then, if ever there is custom tables, at the moment, you don't have. And background task, you can set up what task you want to do here as well. Then here is if you have got any workflows for certain things. So if you've got a workflow for that, you have that. So in a nutshell, this is what the overview is all about. So I know it was quick, but more feel free to ask. So I'm cognizant it's now 10 o'clock. We can take a 5 to 10 minute break. But before that, I just want to see if there's a question, the overview. So just to summarize, at the top, from an administration point of view, you worry about the system admin. You worry about one point which was raised earlier. Everything for setting up users will be near the one. They will take characteristic from an existing user group if you set up the template. And then from a user daily user point of view, you should worry about the two roles, the GL manager and the investment account. Depending on which one you have, then you'll be able to do a few things. So once you have got that, the key thing is you have got the dashboards, which you can customize to see what you want to see. Okay. So how many minutes break?
I think 10.
10, okay.
10. Yeah.
Okay, so
let's come back at 10 past.
Yeah, yes, sure. But in the meantime, if there's any question, feel free to just send me. Yeah, and then we can pick it up after 10 minutes. Thank you.
Great, thanks.